Hey there, welcome to the second video for week 8 of Intro to Computing and the Internet to CS201. We will be covering the rest of Chapter 9 today, and also I'm going to say a few words about the midterm that we'll be having next week. So, alright, let's get right into it. We were talking about this ESP test last time. I'm just going to show this as a reminder what we're talking about, where basically we would pick, say we're picking a number between 1 and 4 and we're guessing to see if we're right, so it's going to do a random number basically between 1 and 4. The page source for this is basically such that it has a function called pickNumber, which is called from the HTML onClick pickNumber1. You see this here. So this pickNumber1 calls into this function, and in this case it's calling it with the parameter 1. So this 1 is being passed in, 1 becomes guess. And what it does then is it says we guessed 1, for example. My number that the computer rolled was number, which is gotten from math.ceil of math.random times 4. That's just a bit of review from last time. You can also pass in multiple inputs. So like in this example, we have Old MacDonald verse, Old Mac verse, which is passing an animal and a sound. And if the function has more than one input, that is where you would pass multiple parameters to that said function. So for example, here we have function Old Mac verse, animal and sound. Now when you do the onClick, you call Old Mac verse with cow and moo. And now these parameters are no longer numbers, they are strings. So we can print these just as they are. So we call document.getElementById output div inner HTML equals Old MacDonald had a farm E-I-E-I-O, and on that farm he had a animal, which is the cow. So this is the variable here, with a sound, which is the moo. That is the variable here that was passed in. So the values are matched so that the first input value is the first parameter of the function, which is animal. The second parameter of the function is sound, and that becomes the variable that's used within the Old Mac verse. Parameters in a function are basically a local variable. They allow you to do generalized computation. They allow you to formalize the function itself, and values can come into these formulas, into these functions, to be made to do different things. So basically, parameters are just special instances of local variables. When the function is called, memory cells are basically allocated for the parameters, and each input from the cell call is assigned to a corresponding parameter. So what do I mean by that? Well, this function Old Mac verse, actually let's take this one here. What that really means is, let's take a look at this in more detail. There. Open up OneNote quick. This is annoying. There we go, new section. All right, so variables. What do we mean by that? Well, notice how we've got var number. This is in pickNumber. Okay. Then we've got guess, which is in function pickNumber of guess. All right. Those are both variables. One variable in this case is on line 10. The other one is defined on line 14. Both of those will come in. And be defined. Number is going to go here. Guess is going to go here. And this is our memory. So our memory now has number and it has guess. Number ends up getting assigned eventually assigned a value on line 16. Guess gets assigned a value on line 10, which is called from lines 31 to 34. All right, let me explain that for a second here. I'm going to make these bigger. So in our memory, basically we have to look at what the program is actually doing. Well, the program is actually saying in the HTML input type button 1, value 1 guess equals on click pick number 1. That 1 is assigned to guess on line 31 because it goes into line 10 and it says pick number guess. Well, guess gets assigned on line 10 by virtue of the fact that it was called on line 31, and guess becomes 1. So in 31 it's going to be 1. In 32 it's going to be 2. In 33 it's going to be 3. In 34 it's going to be 4. All right, so that's how that works with variables. So as this slide says, when the function is called, those memory cells that I've just shown, these are the memory cells. Those are assigned, right? Once the parameter has been assigned that variable value, you can refer to that parameter within the function. So that's what we do again here. Number is referred to on line 18, right here. When the function terminates, those values go away. So at line number 20, the very end of this function, number goes away. So basically we would see this whole thing actually go away. Now guess would also go away, because guess is also only valued available from 10 through 21. So right when line 20 hits, it basically says I'm getting rid of this cell and that cell. And we'll talk about that in some more of your computer science classes a bit later. Parameters do not need to be declared, though, as local variables like number is. They just automatically become local variables. Now, functions can also have return values. So, for example, in the next slide, we're going to sort out how to convert from inches to centimeters and centimeters to inches. And we're going to use helper functions for those called inches to centimeters, which takes a inches parameter and returns how many centimeters that value is. We're also going to have one called centimeters to inches that takes a centimeters value and returns how many inches that is. So for example, number equals math.square root of 9. We've done that before, and that's returned the square root of 9, which is 3. And now we're just going to do that again except this time with our custom function that we've built, which is called inches to centimeters. The general form of this is we just say return, and then the thing that we're returning, which is cm in this case. So we add these functions to the head of a page. Also, we could add them to a separate JavaScript file, as I showed you previously. In this case, you would place it as a library file like I did before, and that would be loaded into the page. This is a nice way of going about it because it avoids duplication. It makes it easy to reuse these functions and easy to modify those functions because they're in a separate page. Let's take an example of that. So this is going to convert 1 inch to centimeters. And oh, it is not going to work. Interesting. Let's see what's going on here. Yep, not quite sure right offhand why it's not working. I'm assuming that it's because convert.js is gone? Yeah, convert.js is gone. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's take a second to fix that, and it'll, in the process of fixing it, it'll show you how this stuff is put together. So what I'm going to do is convert.js should be pointing to the functions that we just defined on our slides. I'm going to go ahead and take this source, open up Sublime, save this to the desktop as convert.html. Now, notice that convert.html is using convert.js. So I'm going to make a new file. This is going to be called convert.js, and what I should type in here is this exact function. Function inches to centimeters. This takes an inches parameter. It creates a temporary variable called cm. It says that cm is equal to inches times 2.54, and then it returns the centimeter value that was computed. I'm going to save this as convert.js, and it should automatically change my formatting. Yep, it does. And I'm going to make another function called centimeters to inches. That takes cm. It declares var inches. And it says inches is equal to cm divided by 2.54. Then it returns inches. So there is my convert.js. And notice it's just two completely separate functions, just as we've defined.